Now, to go from an 8 to 10 second dodgy handstand all the way through to a 30-second one-arm handstand took me 4 years and 4 months. To get a 10-second one-arm handstand was 1 year, 6 months. And this is probably one of the most common questions I get asked when it comes to handstands and calisthenics. How long does it take to get from where you're at to where you want to get to? But the first thing we need to check is where we're starting. So I started this style of training in December 2013 at the age of 37. I had a dodgy 8 to 10 second freestanding handstand, an even worse muscle up on the bar and the rings, chicken wing style. After playing with some CrossFit, I could do 10 to 15 chin-ups. I had a strong overhead press from lots of traditional training with barbells and dumbbells. I struggled to touch my toes and I struggled to sit in a squat, and I couldn't even think about sitting in a straddle position. So my background was standard weight training and then with a little bit of CrossFit on top. So once I started that daily practice, I went from an 8 to 10 second dodgy hold to a 2-arm 60-second hold in 3 to 4 months. It took me 1 year to get my first 3 seconds in a 1-arm handstand, 1 year, 3 months to get 6 seconds. Like I say, 1 year, 6 months to get 10 seconds, 2 years, 6 months to get 20-second 1-arm. And then interestingly, on my bad side, so my left arm, it took me the 4 years to get 10 seconds on that side because of a dodgy shoulder. What's common when you're training to a skill that takes so long to achieve, and this has happened to me and it happens to most people, is we tend to go up and down with our enthusiasm to train it. So some weeks, some months I'm training it all the time, and then other times I'm training it less, and I've picked up these other skills, so my priorities sort of changed up and down. But I'd say this is more or less a realistic time frame for most people to achieve a 1-arm handstand is around that 18 months to 2 years. It could be a lot less, it could be a lot more, but I'm happy to say 10.5 years later after starting that journey, and at the age of 47, I can still hold these times, even though I'm training it much less. When it comes to the 2-arm handstand, so it took me around 3 to 4 months to get 60 seconds, and again, I'd say that's realistic coming from an 8 to 10 second freestanding handstand. But that 8 to 10 second freestanding handstand can take people around 6 months to achieve. It depends how many sessions you're training per week, what level you're coming from, and your consistency. Now, when I started my press handstand and handstand push-up journey, I already had very good condition and strength in the upper body from a pushing point of view. So I was pretty strong in both of these. It only took me 2 months to supposedly get a straddle press to handstand. Now, I say that because if we look at the quality of the press, it's a dodgy hybrid between a pike and a straddle with the legs. The knees are bent a little bit, but they go round the back. I don't actually hold the handstand at the top. And if you look carefully, I'm actually on an incline. So put all those things together and not quite having enough flexibility, you could argue that this isn't a press handstand. And the same applies to my so-called stool to press, and I got that in 7 months. Now that was even worse. The arms bend slightly. I'm doing it with raised hands because I didn't have the flexibility to get the legs through on the floor. And this is one of the big things you're going to find as you go down this process, is that as you get deeper down the line, you're harder and harder on yourself in terms of the quality that you're expecting. I would look back on these now and say these definitely don't count. My first 60-second hold was all over the place. The first 3-second 1-arm handstand was wobbling all over the place. The straddle press had bent legs. The stool to press had bent arms. So all of these things have a tolerance for quality, and that tolerance gets harder and harder, sharper and sharper as we get further down the rabbit hole, especially if you're a coach, because you start to demand a higher and higher quality for each of the skills. But I'm basing these on when I said at the time that I got the skill. So the pike press was 4 months, but from coaching clients, I'd say the average time to achieve a press handstand is around 3 months to 18 months. Now that's a massive window, but it depends a lot on strength and flexibility. If you have someone that's super flexible, you can normally get them a press much quicker than the average person. If you get someone that's super strong, you can normally get them a press quicker than the average person. Now, I couldn't find my first handstand push-up. I'll try to look back through my Instagram. I know it's in there somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But I could find the 90-degree handstand push-up. So it took me 2 years to get a 90-degree handstand push-up. Now, like I say, I already had a muscle up when I started in that December 2013. I went to Ido's workshop 2 months later, and that's where I was shown how to do a ring forward roll. So I unlocked that in January, so that was 2 months. However, I believe that anyone with a strong muscle up can already do a forward roll. They just need to know the technique. Now, when it comes to learning the muscle up, the biggest thing there is pulling strength. So if you have really good pulling strength and you can pull really high, then a lot of people will get their muscle up very, very fast, even on the same day they're taught how to do it. But if your pulling strength is weak and you don't have a chin up yet, the high chest to bar chin ups is going to be your limitation on the muscle up. So the time frame is going to be around the chin up, not the muscle up. So if you already have that chin up, I would say it's going to take you around a month to 6 months to get a muscle up. If you don't have the chin up, it's going to be more like 6 months to 18 months to get the muscle up. Now, when it comes to flexibility, this is a really interesting one. Flexibility can help unlock some of these other things, but is also very dependent on the person. Now, we're either naturally flexible or we're not naturally flexible. There's like a 9-point flexibility test you can do to give yourself an idea whether you're actually naturally or unnaturally flexible. A lot of people, because they're posturally tight, don't actually realize that they're flexible. Now the test goes through like this. So the first 2 points come from, can we pull our little finger down to 90 degrees at this joint? So just pull your little finger, see if you can make it go to 90 degrees. You see mine don't go, so I don't get any points for that. But if your finger goes like that and gets 90 degrees, you get 2 points. Next is similar. Can you get your thumb to touch your forearm? See, again, mine's nowhere near, so I can't do that on both sides. If you can, it's another 2 points. So you could have 4 points now. The next is hyperextension at the elbow. So you see when I straighten the arm there, my elbow doesn't go up and down. If it goes up and down and you can hyperextend the elbows, you get another 2 points. So now you could have 6 points. I'm at the moment on 0. Then we do the same with the knees. So we're going to see if our knees hyperextend backwards. Now I actually score points for this. I never used to, but because all the head to toe work, I've actually hyperextended my legs. So I'll score 2 points here because my legs hyperextend backwards slightly. If they don't, they'd be like this. So you could now have 8 points. I have 2. And then the last one is locking the knees backwards. See if you can get your palms flat to the floor. If you can do that, you score 1 more point. So I scored 3 points on the flexibility test. So if you're like me and you scored 3 or under, that means that you're probably going to develop strength slightly easier. If you injure yourself, you're more likely to hurt a muscle, and you're going to find it harder to gain flexibility and maintain flexibility compared to someone who is higher on that scale. So if you're scoring 8 or 9 points on that, if you injure yourself, you're more likely to have a joint issue. You'll find it harder to fill your ranges with strength, but you will respond really well to flexibility training. Now, you could be someone who scores high on those points, but feel tight, and that's normally because of postural tightness, not actual tightness. However, whatever you score on the flexibility scale, I believe everyone should have a daily practice. If you're more flexible, it should be more mobility, so fill in the ranges you already have with strength. And then if you're tighter, as you work your flexibility on a daily practice, you're also going to fill it with strength, but it's going to be more gradual. Now, I hit my seated straddle very hard from the start. When I started, I could hardly sit in the position, even with the butt raised up, but it took me around 4 months to get head to floor. It took 7 months to do a straddle L sit. Then I suppose the most measurable achievement in terms of flexibility for me is head to toe. So head to toe took me 18 months to get. Now obviously we could go into lots of other skills and look at different timelines. So if you're interested in any other skills that I can do and you want to know how long it took me to get them, ask me down in the comments. Let me know your experience in terms of timelines. If you're after help with your training, check out my link for my app, and I'll speak to you in the next one.